Story outline: Echoes of Stardust Part 1. The Harvester's Conscient Character. Dex Morvan, a young alien harvester working in the processing facilities of Kepler Station, extracting luminescent essence from captured stellar beings. When he encounters a dying star child named Nira, her fading light awakens something he never knew existed within him. Part 2. The Smuggler's Gambit Character. Captain Zara Voss, a hardened cargo smuggler, who discovers Dex and Nira hiding in her ship's hold, initially planning to turn them in for the bounty. She finds herself drawn into their escape when Nira's healing touch saves her from a fatal poison. Part 3. The Archivist's Secretary Actor. Finn Blackwood, a quiet data archivist on the remote research moon of Pandora who has been secretly documenting the genocide of stellar beings. When the fugitives crash land near his hidden sanctuary, he must choose between his safe isolation and joining their desperate flight. Part 4. The Hunters. Dialomacher actor Valencia Cross, an elite tracker hired to capture the escaped stellar being. As she closes in on her quarry, she begins experiencing strange visions through Nira's psychic connection, forcing her to confront the truth about her own mysterious past. Part 5. The Foundling's Destinicker actor Orion Vale, a former stellar being who had his powers stripped away as a child, and now works as a mechanic on the frontier world of Haven. When the group arrives seeking refuge, he must rediscover his dormant abilities to protect them from the final assault. Part 1. The Harvester's Conscience extraction chamber hummed with a sound that reminded Dex Morvan of dying whispers. He pressed his palm against the cool metal wall, feeling the vibrations travel through his bones as another stellar being was drained of their luminous essence in the chamber beyond. 3 years he'd worked these halls, 3 years of sleepless nights and guilt that clung to him like radiation burns. The facility on Kepler Station stretched for miles beneath the asteroid's crust, a maze of sterile corridors and harvesting chambers, where beings of pure starlight were slowly murdered for their energy. Dex told himself he was just a maintenance worker, just cleaning the machines, just following orders. But every night, their screams echoed in his dreams. Morvan. The sharp voice of Overseer Grix cut through his thoughts. The Vekthari's chitinous face gleamed under the harsh lights, compound eyes reflecting Dex's tired expression. Processing Bay 7 needs cleaning. They just finished with specimen for 1471. Dex nodded, gathering his cleaning supplies with practiced efficiency. His hands shook slightly as he loaded the sonic scrubbers and bio-waste containers onto his cart. Specimen for 1471. They never used names. Here never acknowledged that these beings had families, had dreams, had loved ones somewhere among the stars who would never see them again. The processing bay doors hissed open, releasing a wave of superheated air that carried the metallic tang of spent energy cells, and something else, something that smelled like burning starlight. Dex had learned not to look too closely at the extraction tables, but today something made him stop. She couldn't have been more than equivalent to a human teenager, her form semi-corporeal and flickering like a candle in the wind. Most of her light had been drained, leaving behind only faint traces of blue and silver that danced weakly beneath translucent skin. Her eyes, those impossibly deep eyes that seemed to hold entire galaxies, were still open, still aware, still alive. Dex whispered, dropping his cleaning tools. The stellar beings were supposed to be fully processed before he entered, their consciousness extinguished along with their light. But this one, she was watching him with an expression that made his chest tighten. He approached slowly, his footsteps echoing in the empty chamber. "Hey there," he said softly, not sure why he was speaking to her. The stellar beings rarely understood human languages, communicating instead through harmonics and light patterns that the facility's translators could barely interpret. The girl's lips moved, producing a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. To his surprise, the universal translator in his ear crackled to life. "Are you here to finish it?" Dex froze. She spoke. They never spoke directly to the workers. "No," he said, his voice catching. I clean up after they steal our songs," she whispered, her light pulsing weakly with each word. "After they pour our dreams into their machines. I'm sorry." The words tumbled out before he could stop them. I'm so sorry. I didn't know you could. I never heard one of you speak before." A sound that might have been laughter rippled through her form. "We sing constantly. Your people simply choose not to listen." She turned her head toward him, and he saw tears of liquid starlight trailing down her cheeks. "What is your name?" "Cleaner of sorrows. Dex Morvan." He knelt beside the extraction table, his hand hovering inches from her face. "What's yours?" "Nira of the 7th constellation, daughter of supernova Cassandra, keeper of the twilight songs." Her voice grew weaker with each word. "I was gathering stellar dust for my first symphony when your hunters found me." The weight of her words hit him like a physical blow. She had a name, a family, a purpose. She was an artist, just like his sister had been before the plague took her. "Nira," he repeated, testing the name on his tongue. "That's beautiful. It means hope in the old language," she said. "My mother gave it to me because I was born during a solar storm when hope seemed impossible." Her form flickered, becoming more transparent. "I do not think I will see her again." Dex's heart hammered against his ribs. The extraction had nearly killed her, but not quite. There might still be time if he acted now, if he was willing to throw away everything he'd built here. "What if I told you that you could?" Nira's eyes widened, her fading light suddenly flaring brighter. "You would help me. I don't know how yet," Dex admitted, glancing toward the door. His shift supervisor would be making rounds soon. "But I can't just walk away. Not after hearing your voice, knowing your name." "Why?" she asked. "Your kind has shown mine only cruelty. Why would you be different?" Dex thought of his sister Mira, how she'd painted pictures of imaginary worlds right up until the end, how she'd never lost her compassion, even when the pain became unbearable. "Because someone I loved once told me that hope is the only thing stronger than fear, and right now, you're the most hopeful thing I've ever seen." Tears continued to flow down Nira's face, but now they seemed to glow more brightly. "If you help me escape, they will hunt you. Your life will never be safe again." "Maybe." Dex stood, his mind already racing through possibilities. The service tunnels, the maintenance schedules, the cargo ships that docked twice weekly. "But I haven't really been living anyway. Just surviving. Just pretending I don't hear the screaming." Nira struggled to sit up, her form solidifying slightly as hope rekindled her failing energy. "There's a place," she whispered, "beyond the outer rim, where my people have built a hidden sanctuary. If we could reach it, we will." Dex said with more confidence than he felt. He began disconnecting the monitoring cables from her body, his hands surprisingly steady. "I don't know how, but we will." As the last cable came free, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. Red lights bathed the chamber in an angry glow, and heavy footsteps echoed in the corridor outside. They'd been discovered. "Can you move?" Dex asked urgently, helping Nira slide off the extraction table. Her legs were weak, but she managed to stand with his support. "A little," she said, her form flickering like a disrupted hologram. "But I cannot sustain physical cohesion for long. The extraction damaged my core essence." The chamber doors burst open, and 3 security guards rushed in with energy rifles raised. "Step away from the specimen," the lead guard shouted. Dex pulled Nira behind him, his mind racing for options. The service tunnel entrance was just 20 feet away, but it might as well have been 20 miles with armed guards blocking their path. "Please," he said, raising his hands. "She's dying. Just let me take her to the medical bay." "The specimen is scheduled for termination," the guard replied coldly. "Protocol 77 Alpha. Total energy extraction until cessation of consciousness. Her name is Nira," Dex shouted, surprising himself with his anger. "She has a mother waiting for her. Dreams she'll never fulfill because of what we've done here." The guards exchanged glances, momentarily taken aback by his outburst. In that instant of hesitation, Nira stepped forward, her body suddenly blazed, with renewed light, not the gentle glow from before, but a fierce radiance that filled the entire chamber. "I am Nira of the 7th constellation," she declared, her voice ringing with newfound strength, "and I choose hope over fear." The light exploded outward, not harmful but blinding. The guards stumbled backward, their equipment shorting out in showers of sparks. Dex felt Nira's hand slip into his, warm and solid and real. "Run," she whispered. Together, they fled toward the service tunnel as chaos erupted behind them. As they disappeared into the darkness of the maintenance shaft, Dex could hear Overseer Grick's screaming orders, could feel the vibration of boots pounding through the facility above. There was no going back now. He was no longer just a cleaner of sorrows. He was a fugitive, a rebel, a man who had chosen to listen when the universe sang its most beautiful and tragic song. And beside him, growing stronger with each step, ran hope itself in the form of a stellar being named Nira, whose light would eithe. Part 2. The smuggler's gambit. Captain Zara Voss had survived 18 years of running contraband through the galaxy's most dangerous sectors by following 3 simple rules. Never trust anyone. Completely, never carry cargo you can't jettison in 30 seconds, and never, ever let emotions cloud business judgment. Tonight, as she nursed a glass of Arcturian whiskey in the dimly lit cantina of Frontier Station, she was about to break all 3. The poison was already working its way through her system when the young human stumbled into her booth, supporting what looked like a flickering hologram wrapped in a maintenance worker's jacket. Zara's vision blurred as she tried to focus on the pair, her hand instinctively moving toward the blaster at her hip. "Please," the human said, his voice desperate. "We need passage off station." "I can pay." Zara laughed, the sound bitter as the toxin burned through her veins. "Kid, unless you've got a master-class medic hidden in your pocket, I won't be taking anyone anywhere." She held up her glass, noting how her hand trembled. "Seems someone didn't appreciate my last delivery. Calaxian nerve poison gives you maybe an hour before your nervous system shuts down." The figure beside the human stirred, pushing back the hood of the jacket. Zara's breath caught despite the poison clouding her thoughts. The being underneath was ethereally beautiful, with translucent skin that held the faint shimmer of starlight, and eyes like twin nebulae. A stellar being, but that was impossible. They were all dead, harvested to extinction decades ago. "I can help," the stellar being said, her voice like distant music, "if you will help us in return." Zara's training screamed warnings. Stellar beings were myth, legend, worth more than entire star systems if they actually existed. But as another wave of poison-induced agony rolled through her body, practical concerns overrode paranoia. "Dex," the stellar being said to her companion, "help me get her to somewhere private." The human Dex looked around the cantina nervously. "Zara, is it? Do you have a ship nearby?" "Bay 94, Zara gasped, fumbling for her access cards. "The Starfire's Edge. But listen, kid, if this is some kind of con, it's not," Dex said firmly, supporting her weight as they left the cantina. "Nira can heal people. It's what her kind does." The journey to the docking bay passed in a haze of pain and paranoia. Zara's ship, a modified Corellian freighter with more hidden compartments than visible ones, sat waiting in the shadows of the maintenance sector. The Starfire's Edge had been her home and sanctuary for 15 years, ever since she'd fled the mining colonies with nothing but stolen credits and a burning need for freedom. Inside the ship's small medical bay, Nirif, that was really her name, helped Zara onto the examination table. "This will feel strange," the stellar being warned. "I must connect with your life force to neutralize the toxin." "Just do it," Zara whispered, black spots dancing at the edges of her vision. Nira placed her hands on Zara's chest, and immediately the captain's world exploded into light. Not the harsh, artificial illumination of ship's lighting, but something warm and alive. Like standing in the heart of a star, the poison's fire transformed into healing energy, flowing through her bloodstream and repairing the damage with impossible precision. But more than physical healing flowed between them. Images flickered through Zara's mind, memories that weren't her own. She saw a vast stellar nursery where beings of pure light danced between newborn stars. She felt the anguish of Nira's capture, the horror of the harvesting facilities, the desperate hope that had sustained her through unimaginable torment. And Nira saw into Zara's heart as well, the childhood spent in the labor camps, the brutal overseer who'd broken more than just bones, the sister she'd left behind when she escaped, the guilt that drove her to take impossible risks, as if courting death might somehow balance the scales of survival. When the connection ended, both women were gasping. Zara's body felt renewed, stronger than it had in years, but her heart ached. With borrowed grief, Nira had collapsed into Dex's arms, her ethereal form flickering like a candle in the wind. "The healing cost her," Dex said, his voice tight with worry. "She's been drained almost to nothing by the extraction process. Every time she uses her abilities now, she gets weaker," Zara finished. Understanding flooding through her, she sat up, testing her renewed strength. The poison was completely gone, her nervous system functioning perfectly. "Why did you save me? You don't even know me." Nira lifted her head, managing a weak smile. "Because you were dying, and I could help, reason enough." Zara stared at the stellar being for a long moment, recognizing something in those ancient eyes that she'd thought lost forever: genuine compassion without expectation of reward. It was a quality she'd encountered maybe 3 times in her adult life, and never from someone facing their own extinction. "Where are you trying to go?" she asked finally. "The sanctuary," Nira whispered. "Beyond the outer rim, past the Veil Nebula. My people built it in secret, for survivors." Zara whistled low. "That's a hell of a journey. Through Alliance space, pirate territory, and regions where the star charts end. I'd need to charge premium rates for a run like that." Dex reached into his pocket, producing a data chip. "I downloaded the location of every harvesting facility in this sector, plus security codes and extraction schedules. That information could save thousands of stellar beings still in captivity. Assuming any government actually cares enough to act on it," Zara said. But she took the chip anyway. Information was always valuable, and this particular data could command astronomical prices from the right buyers or the right rebels. "There's more," Dex continued. "Nira isn't the only survivor they're holding. The facility on Kepler Station has at least 40 stellar beings in various stages of extraction. If we could free them..." "Ho there, hero," Zara interrupted. "I run cargo, not rescue missions. One passenger to the outer rim is risky enough without taking on the entire Imperial harvesting operation." Nira struggled to sit up, her hand reaching for Zara's. "Please. I felt your memories when I healed you. You know what it means to be caged, to have your essence slowly stolen away. Help us save the others." The touch sent another pulse of shared emotion between them, and Zara jerked her hand back. She couldn't afford this kind of connection. Emotional entanglement was how smugglers ended up dead or worse. But the stellar being's plea stirred something deep in her chest, a long-buried part of herself that still remembered what it felt like to hope. "The job would be suicide," she said finally. "Kepler Station is a fortress, military-grade shields, automated defense systems, and enough firepower to vaporize a battle cruiser. But you know a way in," Dex said with surprising confidence. "I can see it in your eyes. You've been thinking about it since we mentioned the facility." Zara cursed under her breath. The kid was perceptive. She did know a way: the old mining tunnels that connected Kepler Station to the asteroid's mineral processing plants. She'd used them before for particularly sensitive deliveries, but never for anything like this, even if we could get inside. She said, "Getting 40 stellar beings off station without being detected would be impossible. My ship can barely handle 3 passengers, and stellar beings need specialized life support systems." "Not all of them," Nira said softly. "Many of my people can maintain corporeal form long enough for transport, if they have sufficient energy reserves. And if we could restore even a fraction of their stolen essence, they could help with their own rescue," Zara finished. She was actually considering this insanity, which was either a sign of her growing soft or evidence that Nira's healing had affected more than just the poison. The risks would be astronomical. We'd need inside help, distraction protocols, and extraction routes that don't exist on any official star charts. "But you'll do it," Dex said. It wasn't a question. Zara looked between them: the desperate young man who'd thrown away his life for a stranger, and the dying stellar being whose compassion burned brighter than her fading light. She thought of her sister, still trapped in the mining colonies, and all the others like her who'd never escaped their cages. "Against my better judgment," she said finally, "yes, but we do this my way, by my rules. One mistake, and we're all dead." Nira's face lit up with genuine joy, her ethereal form growing slightly more solid. "Thank you, Zara Voss." Your kindness will be remembered in the songs of my people for generations. Save the gratitude until we're all still breathing, Zara muttered. But she couldn't quite suppress a smile. She activated the ship's navigation system, plotting a course back toward Kepler Station. We'll need to move fast. Once they realize you're gone, they'll lock down the entire sector. As the Starfire's edge lifted off from Frontier Station, Zara found herself wondering when exactly she'd become the kind of person who'd risk everything for strangers. But watching Nira sleep peacefully for the first time since her capture, and seeing the fierce protectiveness in Dex's eyes, she realized that maybe some risks were worth taking. After all, what good was freedom if you never used it to free others? The stars stretched ahead of them, cold and infinite, but for the first time in years, Zara felt like she was flying towards something worth reaching, instead of just running from what she'd left behind. Part 3. The archivist's secret. Finn Blackwood had been dead to the galaxy for 7 years, 3 months and 16 days, at least. That's what the official records showed. Victim of a tragic shuttle accident while conducting research in the Pandora system's outer moons. In reality, he was very much alive, hiding in a converted research station buried beneath the ice of Pandora's fourth moon, surrounded by the most dangerous collection of data in known space. The morning alarms that jolted him from restless sleep weren't part of his usual routine. His automated systems detected an unscheduled ship crash approximately 12 kilometers from his hidden sanctuary. Finn pulled up the sensor readings on his main terminal, his coffee growing cold as he studied the heat signatures and debris patterns scattered across the moon's frozen surface. Corellian freighter, he murmured to himself, a habit developed from years of solitude. Modified engine configuration, multiple hull breaches, survivors possible but unlikely in this environment. He should ignore it. 7 years of perfect isolation. 7 years of meticulously documenting the systematic genocide of an entire species. And now some unlucky smuggler threatened to expose everything. Finn's fingers hovered over the console that would activate his base's stealth protocols, making it invisible to any rescue attempts. But something in the ship's configuration nagged at him. The modifications were expensive. Professional, not the kind of vessel that ended up in the Pandora system by accident. And the trajectory suggested they'd been running from something, pushed far off any established shipping lane. Curiosity killed the archivist, Finn said. But he was already reaching for his environmental suit. The scholar in him had never quite died, despite everything he'd witnessed. The journey across Pandora's icy surface took 2 hours on his modified speeder, following a route carefully mapped to avoid the sensor rays left behind by the mining consortium. The freighter had crashed in a deep valley between 2 ice ridges, its hull cracked open like an egg and bleeding heat into the frigid air. Finn approached cautiously, scanner in hand, 3 life signs inside the ship, weak but stable. He climbed through a breach in the cargo hold, his suit's lights revealing scattered supplies and what looked like hastily packed personal belongings someone had left in a hurry. "Hello," he called out, his voice echoing through the damaged corridors. "Anyone conscious in here?" A groan from the direction of the cockpit drew his attention. He found a woman with dark hair and pilot's calluses, struggling to free herself from the wreckage of her command chair. Human, late 30s, with the kind of scars that spoke of a hard life in dangerous places. "Easy there," Finn said, helping her extract her leg from the twisted metal. "I'm Finn. I live nearby. Are you injured, Zara?" she gasped, wincing as he examined her leg. "Captain of this wreck. My passengers, are they? 2 more life signs. Let me get you stabilized first." Finn applied a medical patch to her leg, noting the way she kept glancing toward the ship's interior. "What happened?" "This system isn't exactly on the main shipping routes. Engine failure," Zara said quickly. "Too quickly. Lost power during a routine cargo run." Finn had spent enough years around desperate people to recognize a lie, but he didn't press. Instead, he helped her limp toward the rear compartments where his scanner had detected the other survivors. What he found there nearly sent him stumbling backward in shock. A young human man sat cradling what appeared to be a stellar being, an impossibility that made Finn's carefully ordered world tilt on its axis. The being was clearly injured. Her translucent form flickering like a damaged hologram, but she was undeniably real, one of the extinct species he'd spent 7 years documenting through their final genocide. "You're staring," the young man said defensively. "Her name is Nira. She's not some specimen to be studied." "I know what she is," Finn whispered, his voice hoarse with emotion. "I know exactly what she is, and she shouldn't exist." Dex Zera introduced him tense protectively over the stellar being. "What do you mean?" Instead of answering immediately, Finn activated his portable scanner, taking readings that confirmed what his eyes had already told him. Genuine stellar being physiology. Energy patterns consistent with the extinct astral nomad species, cellular. Structure that defied conventional understanding of matter and energy. "Because I've been documenting their extinction for 7 years," he said finally. "Every facility, every harvest, every death, as far as my research showed. The last stellar being died 3 months ago on a processing station near Vega Prime." Nira stirred in Dex's arms, her otherworldly eyes focusing on Finn with obvious effort. "You study my people. I preserve their memory," Finn corrected gently. "I record their stories, their culture, their final words. Someone needs to remember what was lost." "Why?" Zera asked, studying him with sharp intelligence. "Why would someone risk their life to document genocide? What's your angle?" Finn was quiet for a long moment, weighing years of paranoia against an unexpected opportunity for human connection. "Because I helped design the harvesting technology," he said. "Finally, 12 years ago, I was a xenobiology researcher working for Meridian Dynamics. I thought we were developing medical applications for stellar being energy patterns. I didn't realize," his voice cracked, "I didn't know they were using my work to build more efficient extraction chambers." The confession hung in the air like a physical weight. Dex's expression hardened with disgust, while Zera remained calculatingly neutral. But it was Nira's reaction that surprised him most. Her flickering hand reached out to touch his arm, and he felt a brief pulse of something that might have been forgiveness. "You couldn't have known," she whispered. "Your kind often creates beauty without seeing how others twist it into horror." "I could have stayed ignorant," Finn said bitterly. "But once I learned the truth, I couldn't stop researching. I faked my death, built this sanctuary, and dedicated my life to bearing witness. It seemed like the least I could do." "Show us," Dex said suddenly. "Show us what you've collected." Finn hesitated. His research was everything. 7 years of painstaking documentation that represented the only complete record of his species' systematic destruction. Revealing it to strangers violated every security protocol he'd established. But looking at Nira, seeing proof that his people hadn't been entirely wiped out, he realized that his archives meant nothing if they remained hidden forever. "Can she travel?" he asked. "My base has medical facilities, proper life support. If she's injured from the crash, she's injured from much more than that," Dex said grimly. "She was being harvested on Kepler Station when I helped her escape. Every time she uses her abilities, she gets weaker." Finn's blood chilled. Kepler Station was one of the most brutal facilities he'd documented, known for experimental extraction techniques that prolonged the harvesting process for weeks. The fact that Nira had survived it all was miraculous. "Then we need to get her proper treatment immediately," he said, helping Dex lift the stellar being. "My base is equipped with medical technology that might help stabilize her condition." The journey back to his sanctuary took longer with injured passengers, but Finn's speeder was designed for mercy missions. As they descended into the hidden entrance beneath the ice, he watched Nira's face fill with wonder at the vast archives spread through the converted research station. Holographic displays showed star maps marking harvesting locations. Digital monuments preserved the final recordings of stellar beings who had shared their stories with him. Through stolen communications arrays, genetic samples and energy pattern analyses filled laboratory storage units, representing years of careful research. "You've documented everything," Nira breathed, her form growing slightly more solid as the base's specialized life support systems engaged. "Every world we lost, every song that was silenced." "Not everything," Finn admitted. "There are gaps, facilities I couldn't access, stories I couldn't preserve. But it's the most complete record that exists." Zero was examining his communication arrays with professional interest. This setup could broadcast across half the galaxy. Why haven't you released any of this? Because the moment I do, every government and corporation involved in the harvesting will send fleets to destroy this place, Finn explained. My death bought me invisibility, but revelation would mean genuine extinction for me and for everything I've preserved. What if there was another way? Dex asked. What if instead of just documenting the genocide, we could actually stop it? Finn looked at the young man with a mixture of admiration and pity. The harvesting infrastructure spans dozens of star systems, military complexes, corporate interests, government contracts worth trillions of credits. 3 people and 1 injured. Stellar being can't fight that kind of power. 3 people, 1 stellar being, and the most comprehensive intelligence archive on their entire operation, Zara corrected. Plus a ship captain who knows how to reach places that don't officially exist, and 40 more stellar beings still trapped on Kepler Station, Nira added softly, waiting for someone to remember that their lives have value. Finn stared at his life's work surrounding them, years of careful documentation, meticulous preservation, scholarly dedication to bearing witness. It was important work, vital work, but it was also passive, safe, a way of helping without risking everything he'd built. Heathaug. Part 4. The Hunter's Dilemma. Valencia Cross had tracked quarry across 17 star systems, through asteroid fields that would crush lesser ships, and into the heart of solar storms that could blind navigation computers. She had never lost a target, never failed to deliver, and never allowed personal feelings to interfere with professional obligations, which made the headaches that had been plaguing her for the past 3 days particularly troubling. The bounty posting for the escaped stellar being had appeared on her secure channels, with a priority rating she'd only seen twice before. 50 million credits for live capture, 25 million for confirmed termination, plus bonuses for any accomplices. The client, listed only as Meridian Collective, had provided detailed biometric data, last known locations, and associated personnel files. Valencia studied the holographic display in her ship's briefing room, her cybernetic eye automatically cataloging threat assessments and tactical approaches. The stellar being, designation Asset 4471, had escaped Kepler Station with help from a maintenance worker named Dex Morvan. Security footage showed them boarding a modified Corellian freighter registered to 1 captain, Zara Voss, known smuggler, with ties to rebel sympathizers. Straightforward extraction, she murmured. Updating her mission parameters, her ship, the Phantom's Edge, was already tracking their ion trail toward the Pandora system. At current pursuit speed, she would intercept them within 18 hours. That's when the first vision hit her. Valencia was reviewing approach vectors when her consciousness suddenly exploded with alien sensations. She found herself floating in the vast darkness between stars, surrounded by beings of pure light who moved in complex harmonies that spoke directly to her soul. She felt their joy as they tended newborn stars, their sorrow as ancient suns collapsed into darkness, their terror as hunters came with ships full of cages and chains. The vision ended as abruptly as it began, leaving her gasping in her command chair with blood trickling from her nose. Valencia wiped it away with practiced efficiency, running immediate diagnostics on her ship's life support systems. Atmospheric readings were normal. No signs of toxins or hallucinogens. Yet the experience had felt more real than her own memories. Stress-induced hallucination, she told herself, returning to her tactical displays. 12 years of bounty hunting had exposed her to exotic radiations, psychic residues, and a dozen different forms of alien contamination. This was probably just accumulated exposure finally catching up with her. But the visions continued, growing stronger as she drew closer to her quarry. She saw a young woman with starlight in her veins being torn from her family, felt the agony of extraction chambers draining away her essence drop by luminous drop. She experienced the desperate hope that kept her alive through weeks of torture, the impossible kindness of a maintenance worker who chose compassion over safety. Valencia tried to shake off the images, but they clung to her consciousness like fragments of someone else's dreams. Worse, they were affecting her judgment. every time she reviewed the tactical data on her target. She found herself thinking of the stellar being not as asset 4471, but as near a name. That seemed to whisper itself in the back of her mind. Focus. She commanded herself, activating her ship's combat protocols as Pandora's ice-covered moons appeared on her sensors. Target acquired, mission parameters unchanged. But as she tracked the freighter's crash site to the moon's surface, another vision overwhelmed her defenses. This time she was in a hidden archive, watching a human man with haunted eyes document the systematic genocide of an entire species. She felt his guilt, his desperate need to preserve what was being destroyed, his growing horror as he realized the scope of the atrocity. Through his eyes, she saw report after report of stellar beings, dying in harvesting facilities across the galaxy. Hundreds of thousands of them. An entire civilization reduced to energy sources for human expansion. Valencia staggered to her feet, her cybernetic implants sparking as they tried to process sensory input. That wasn't coming through her organic senses. The visions weren't random hallucinations, they were memories, someone else's memories, being transmitted directly into her consciousness. Psychic contact, she whispered, the realization hitting her like a physical blow. The stellar being was somehow projecting her experiences, sharing her people's history with anyone sensitive enough to receive it. And Valencia, despite years of mental conditioning and cybernetic shielding, was apparently sensitive enough. She tried to reinforce her mental barriers, but the memories kept flowing. A smuggler choosing to risk everything for strangers. A maintenance worker learning to see past species barriers to recognize shared suffering. An archivist transforming his guilt into action. And through it all, the gentle presence of Nira herself, not the valuable asset described in the bounty files, but a young woman trying to save what remained of her people, while sacrificing her own life force to heal others. Valencia's hands trembled as she prepared her tracking equipment. 12 years of hunting fugitives had taught her to think of targets as objects, problems to be solved rather than people with families and dreams. It was the only way to maintain professional detachment in a job that often involved separating parents from children, lovers from each other, freedom fighters from their cousins. But these visions made such detachment impossible. She could feel Nira's fear, her hope, her determination to reach the hidden sanctuary where other survivors waited. She could sense the desperation of her human companions, their growing understanding that some causes were worth dying for. Just complete the mission, Valencia muttered, but her voice lacked conviction. She activated her suit's environmental systems and prepared to descend to the moon's surface. The crashed freighter was easy to locate, a heat signature bleeding warmth into the frozen landscape, but her sensors also detected something else, an underground facility nearly invisible to standard scans. Someone was hiding beneath the ice, and her quarry had found them. Valencia approached the hidden entrance with professional caution, noting the sophisticated stealth technology and defensive systems. This wasn't a random hideout, it was a carefully constructed sanctuary designed to remain undetected for years. Her cybernetic eye analyzed the security measures, finding gaps that would allow infiltration without triggering alarms. As she slipped inside, another wave of memories crashed over her. This time she saw her own past through alien eyes, a child raised in military academies, trained to be the perfect weapon, cybernetically enhanced to remove human weakness and emotional liability. She felt Nira's sorrow for what had been done to her, the stellar being's recognition of another victim of systematic dehumanization. The revelation staggered her. In all her years of hunting, she had never considered that she might be as much a prisoner as her target, strapped in a cycle of violence by conditioning so thorough. She couldn't even recognize her own cage. Valencia found them in the archive chamber, surrounded by holographic displays documenting the extinction of Nira's people. The stellar being sat in a specialized medical chair, her form more stable than the bounty files had suggested, but still clearly weakened. The three humans clustered around tactical displays, planning what looked like a rescue mission. Valencia, cross, she announced, stepping into the chamber with her weapon drawn, but not aimed. Freelance acquisition specialist. You're all under citizen's arrest pending transfer to legal custody. The humans spun toward her, the smuggler's hand moving toward her sidearm while the maintenance worker positioned himself protectively in front of Nira. But it was the archivist who surprised her, his face showing recognition rather than fear. "I know who you are," Finn said quietly. "Valencia Cross, former military special operations, discharged after questioning orders during the Altair incident. You've been hunting fugitives for 12 years, perfect success rate, no known associates or personal relationships. You've done your research," Valencia replied, her weapon still drawn but her cybernetic targeting systems strangely reluctant to lock onto any of them. "I've done research on everyone connected to the harvesting operations," Finn continued, "including the bounty hunters they use to track escapees. Do you know why you've never failed to capture a target, Valencia?" The question made her pause. She'd always attributed her success to superior training and equipment, but something in his tone suggested a different explanation. "Because you've been hunting other victims," Nira said softly, rising from her chair despite Dex's protests. "People whose only crime was trying to escape the same systems that trapped you." Valencia felt another memory pulse through her consciousness, her own memory this time, but seen from an outside perspective. She watched herself as a child, strapped to an operating table while military surgeons installed cybernetic implants that would make her more efficient, more obedient, less capable of questioning orders. "Stop," she whispered, but Nira stepped closer, her hand extended in a gesture of peace. "I'm not attacking your mind," the stellar being said gently. "I'm showing you what was always there, the memories they tried to suppress, the emotions they tried to remove." More images flooded through Valencia's consciousness, fellow cadets who had questioned the program and disappeared, missions where she'd captured rebels who were fighting for the same freedoms as. Part 5. The foundling's Destinurian Vale had been dreaming of stars again when the proximity alarms shattered his sleep. He rolled out of bed in the cramped quarters above his repair shop, instinctively reaching for the neural dampeners that kept the headaches at bay. 23 years since they'd stripped away his stellar heritage, and the phantom pains still haunted him during moments of emotional stress. The settlement of Heaven's Rest clung to the edge of civilized space like a barnacle on a ship's hull, a collection of prefab domes and jury-rigged shelters housing refugees, outcasts, and anyone else who'd found the galaxy too hostile for comfort. Orion had chosen this place precisely because nobody asked questions about the past. But now someone was broadcasting distress signals on frequencies that made his stolen memories ache. He pulled on his work coveralls and climbed to the shop's observation deck, where his sensor ray built from salvaged military components painted a picture of the approaching ship. Modified freighter, multiple hull breaches, running on auxiliary power and desperation. The vessel's energy signature made his chest tighten with recognition he couldn't quite place. "Starfire's Edge, this is Heaven's Rest Traffic Control," he transmitted, using the settlement's informal call sign. "You're coming in hot and leaking atmosphere. We've got emergency landing pad 7 cleared for you. Copy, Heaven's Rest," came the reply, a woman's voice tight with strain. "We have injured aboard and hostile pursuit approximately 6 hours behind us. Fair warning, we're carrying cargo that some people would kill for." Orion's hands moved over his controls with practiced efficiency, guiding the damaged freighter to a controlled crash landing in the settlement's emergency bay. But as the ship's engines wound down, he felt something else stirring inside him, a resonance that seemed to come from his very bones, responding to an energy signature he hadn't encountered in over 2 decades. He was halfway to the landing pad when the ship's ramp lowered and they emerged. 3 humans he didn't recognize, all moving with the careful tension of people who'd been running too long and too hard. But it was the 4th figure that stopped him in his tracks, her ethereal form flickering with the unmistakable luminescence of his lost people. A stellar being, alive, aware, and impossibly beautiful in the way that made his suppressed memories scream with phantom agony. "No," he whispered, backing away as emotions he'd thought permanently buried clawed their way to the surface. "No, this isn't possible. They're all dead. I'm the only one left." The stellar being Nira, one of the humans called her, looked directly at him with eyes like captured galaxies. And in that moment, Orion felt the neural dampeners crack under a surge of recognition that transcended conscious thought. He was 5 years old again, floating between the stars with his birth pod siblings, learning the deep songs that shaped matter and energy. He was 8, watching the harvest ships descend, like mechanical locusts. He was 12, strapped to a surgical table while human doctors carved away everything that made him what he was, leaving behind only the hollow echo of stolen light. "Orion," Nira said, her voice like wind chimes in a cosmic storm. "Your true name was Kefta of the Second Harmony, wasn't it? Son of Velinara the Starweaver?" The sound of his birth name, a name he hadn't heard spoken aloud in 23 years, sent him to his knees. Round him, the settlement's residents emerged from their homes, drawn by the commotion but staying at a respectful distance. They'd learned to give Orion space during his episodes. "How?" he gasped, one hand pressed to his chest where the extraction scars still burned phantom bright. "How do you know that name?" "Because I knew your mother," Nira replied, approaching slowly, despite the obvious exhaustion weighing on her form. "She sang of you in the deep harmonies, even after the harvest ships took you. She never stopped believing you might still exist somewhere." The human with maintenance workers' calluses deck stepped forward with obvious concern. "Orion, are you all right, Nira? You shouldn't be exerting yourself like this." "He's like me," Nira said simply. "Or he was, before they tried to make him human. I can feel the resonance in his cellular structure, the echo of stellar essence that they couldn't completely erase." Valencia, the woman who moved like a predator, but whose eyes held unexpected compassion, scanned the horizon with professional wariness. "We need to get undercover. Our pursuit will have tracking algorithms that can follow ion trails through hyperspace. If they catch us here, they won't," Orion said, rising unsteadily to his feet. The neural dampeners were failing completely now, overwhelmed by proximity to genuine stellar energy. "The settlement has defense systems that would surprise you. Military-grade shields, automated gun batteries, enough firepower to make even Imperial cruisers think twice." Finn, the archivist whose guilt had transformed into desperate action, looked around at the ramshackle buildings with obvious skepticism. "This place barely looks capable of supporting its current population, let alone defending against a serious assault." Orion managed a bitter smile. "That's rather the point. Heaven's Rest appears to be exactly what it seems, a refugee settlement. Barely worth noticing, but appearances can be deceiving." He led them through the settlement's winding paths, past workshops where beings from a dozen different species worked on projects that ranged from basic survival to cutting-edge technology. Heaven's Rest had always attracted more than its share of engineers, scientists, and military specialists who'd found themselves on the wrong side of various conflicts. His repair shop sat at the settlement's heart, a converted cargo module that looked like every other building from the outside. But as Orion activated hidden security protocols, blast shields rolled back to reveal a workshop that belonged in a high-tech laboratory rather than a frontier settlement. Stellar technology. Nira breathed, recognizing the crystalline matrices and harmonic resonators that lined the walls, but modified, adapted for human use. 23 years of trying to rebuild what they took from me," Orion said, his voice thick with old pain. "I can't create stellar essence anymore, but I can work with it when I find fragments. Crashed ships sometimes carry power cells that still hold traces of stellar energy. I've been collecting them, studying them, trying to understand what I lost." Zara whistled low as she examined the sophisticated equipment. "This is military research-grade hardware. How does a settlement mechanic afford gear like this?" "Because he's not just a settlement mechanic," Valencia said, her cybernetic eye scanning Orion with new understanding. "You're Kefta 77 Alpha, aren't you? The stellar being who supposedly died during experimental conversion procedures at the Meridian Dynamics facility on Kepler Prime." Orion flinched at the designation number, but nodded slowly. "I was their first successful conversion, the prototype for a program that would have turned my entire species into controllable weapons. When I escaped, they covered it up by declaring the experiment a failure." "But you didn't just escape," Finn said, studying readouts from Orion's equipment. "You've been preparing for something. All this technology, These modifications you're building toward a specific goal. Before Orion could answer, proximity alarms screamed through the settlement. On his tactical displays, a massive Imperial dreadnought dropped out of hyperspace. Flanked by hunter-killer escorts, the ships moved with the precise coordination of a military task force, not the scattered pursuit Zera had been expecting. Meridian Collective Battle Group, Valencia identified, her face pale as she recognized the ship configurations. Full assault formation. They're not here to capture anyone, they're here to sterilize the entire settlement. The lead, ship's commander, appeared on the settlement's emergency channels. His image broadcast to every screen in Heaven's Rest. Orion recognized the cold eyes and surgical scars of someone who'd undergone the same conditioning procedures as Valencia, but without her recent awakening to genuine humanity. "Attention settlement residents," the commander announced. "This facility is harboring fugitive assets belonging to the Meridian Collective. You have 10 minutes to surrender all stellar origin individuals and their accomplices. Failure to comply will result in complete orbital bombardment." Around the settlement, families emerged from their homes carrying emergency packs and looking toward the hidden bunkers that had been prepared for exactly this scenario. But Orion knew that even their best defenses wouldn't stop a dreadnought-class assault. The commander wasn't bluffing. "There has to be another way," Dex said desperately. "These people don't deserve to die because they gave us shelter." "There is," Orion said quietly, his hands moving over controls that he'd hoped never to use. "But it means accepting what I've been running from for 23 years. Deep beneath his workshop, crystalline matrices began to resonate with stored stellar energy. The fragments he'd collected over decades of careful searching suddenly blazed to life, responding to proximity to genuine stellar beings and the emotional resonance of his reawakening heritage. "Orion, what are you doing?" Nira asked, her own essence flickering brighter as the workshop filled with harmonic frequencies. "What I should have done years ago," he replied, stepping into the center of a complex array of modified stellar technology. "They took my natural abilities, but they couldn't remove the fundamental structure of my essence with enough extern